which he would face a long jail term. Well, Karin Giannone covered the trial then. She's back in Pretoria for the verdict and joins us now, Karin, at a hugely tense moment, and the judge calls lunch.
An extraordinary moment to call lunch, David, but what a fast-moving morning, and she's left it at this point where we now know she has two options: find Oscar Pistorius guilty of the lesser charge of culpable homicide or to acquit him. And now we're left for an hour or so while that lunch break continues, wondering and deliberating what she is about to tell us when she returns. But it has been such a fast-moving morning. We'd perhaps expected hour upon hour of very, very dense legal terminology, but she has cut through so much of the prosecution's case, so much circumstantial evidence, simply saying she cannot rely upon it, that she only wants to rely on facts, and that it has not proven to her beyond reasonable doubt the charge of premeditated murder that the state has been going for ever since the events of the early hours of February the 14th last year. Here's a little of what she had to say on that murder charge.
Dr. Stick, an independent witness who was at the accused house minutes after the incident had occurred, stated that the accused looked genuinely distraught as he prayed to God and as he pleaded with him to help save the deceased. There was nothing to gainsay that observation, and this court has not been given any reason to reject it, and we accept it as true and reliable. It follows that the accused erroneous belief that his life was in danger excludes dolus. The accused therefore cannot be found guilty of murder dolus eventualis. That, however, is not the end of the matter, as culpable homicide is a competent verdict.
And there the story is left until the court returns from lunch. Culpable homicide, that charge possibly hanging in the air. We'll find out what Judge Tokosile Masipa will say about that in a few moments' time. But let's talk to Michael Motsoleng, who's a lawyer here in South Africa. I mean, Michael, what an incredibly fast morning compared to what everyone had thought it might be, hour upon hour of very impenetrable legal terminology.
Yeah, when you're rendering judgment, there's no need for you to regurgitate the evidence that was laid. You focus on the key things that were said, and that's what I expected as well. A lot of people had estimated that it would last until tomorrow, but I absolutely expected that it would conclude today. I didn't think it would go as fast as it's going now, because it is going rather rapidly, but certainly that would conclude today. That was in line with my expectation.
So what we do know for sure is that Oscar Pistorius will not be a convicted murderer, whatever happens from here onwards.
Well, the fact that it's not premeditated murder, that was generally expected. I did expect that. The other one, though, I did think that dolus eventualis would be a possible charge, so that a possible a basis for a conviction. So I'm very surprised at the fact that he was not convicted for that.
And now before you go any further, I want you to explain exactly what dolus eventualis means. It's a kind of murder. It's a kind of murder,
so it's a constructive intention. So it's unlike when I have an intention to kill A, I take my gun, I pull my trigger, and I point the gun at A, and he's dead. And there's a dolus eventualis is distinguishable from this, because even though, in other words, I intend to kill somebody, so in other words, we construct it, and how we do it is by you doing a certain thing. And I'll give you an example. I think that's the best way to deal with it. If I set grass on fire and there are children playing somewhere there, the fact that I'm burning grass could just be a simple act. But if a reasonable person should have foreseen that the grass could burn so much that it would actually burn the children nearby, that becomes dolus eventualis. So there's a foreseeability aspect to it, and there's a fact also that despite the fact that I foresaw this possibility, I reconciled myself to that fact, and I proceeded anyway. So that becomes dolus eventualis.
And that is not what Oscar Pistorius will be found guilty of?
That is surprisingly not what Oscar Pistorius is found guilty of. In fact, there is no element of intention for which he's found guilty of. We're now faced with two possible verdicts.
Right, he is absolutely disposed with intention. He did not intend to kill.
So intention is out, and intention does take a number of forms. One of them being dolus eventualis, or the other one being dolus directus. So all of those are excluded, and obviously the first one that I mentioned, which is the premeditated one. So all of those are excluded. So we're left only with two possibilities. One, that he was negligent, or the other one is that he just completely is acquitted. So he's not negligent, he doesn't have intention, and he goes home.
And the negligent part would be culpable homicide, or otherwise known as manslaughter.
Absolutely. So he'd be convicted of manslaughter, and that would attract a sentence of 10 years or less. So anything between 0 to 10 years, he could, so he could actually not even do any time at all.
And that would be an extraordinary development in this case.
It would be, and these are the things that happen in the justice system. We all get surprised, but I think for me, this is too much of a surprise. I did think that, pulling 4 shots or firing 4 shots at a door would attract much more than negligence or even an acquittal. So very surprised that we're here, but I'm not second guessing the judge. I mean, she's vested with the decision, but it is nevertheless a surprising one for me. I didn't see it coming.
Okay, Michael Motsoeneng, thank you very much. A lawyer here in South Africa. We will bring you, of course, the very latest live developments from the court here in Pretoria. It's back to you, David, in London.
Karin, thanks very much indeed. As you say, extremely tense, very dramatic. And I should say, as soon as they reconvene in Pretoria, we'll be going straight there to pick up on the judge's verdict and through to its